Welcome to another $4 million Strategies, the best 4 minutes in business for practical strategy and tips to help grow your business. Very excited today to have Dr. Michael Gerharz. He is the author of The Path to Strategic Impact. Michael, we're talking about strong brand today. What are some tips and recommendations you have to help create that for your business?
I would recommend you ask one question, and that is, what is your pass along phrase? So many businesses approach communication and branding in a way that they throw everything at their audience, so all of their messaging, and hope that something sticks. But that's not how our audiences tick and roll, right? So what you want them to do is when they meet a friend or a colleague or their boss and tell you about you, they are going to pass along a very short and concise statement about you. And if you take control and if you own that pass along phrase, then you're going to be in much better position to actually take control of your brand, because then you can craft your story in a way that it inevitably leads to that pass along phrase.
Okay, that is brilliant, by the way. So let's take that a step further. Give us an example of what a pass along phrase may be.
So suppose you're in the logistics industry, right? And your promise that you're the most efficient carrier that's there, the most reliable out there. So that is a very generic statement, and you can throw basically a lot of stats at your audience. But the slogan that will land much better is something like, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. So that is the slogan that FedEx used for a very long time, and that very concisely communicated their core brand values. And that's very easy to understand what the promise is, and that is very easy to pass along.
So once again, and I love this concept where you're talking about it, because what you're saying is you feel it to be true, right? You know, when somebody has that brand promise is what you're talking about, right? Where people know they could come to you to trust you to get whatever it is done. So I'm curious, when it comes to the marketing side behind it, are you constantly saying it from a marketing perspective? Are you like putting it in all of your literature and all your documentation, or are you alluding to it on a consistent basis? You know, kind of what is the practical advice for that?
That is a good question, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to that. And we see both happening, that some brands communicate it all the time, while others just subtly hint at it. I think the most important point is that there are two sides to a message. First, that your audience rationally understands it, but that it also emotionally feels it. And I think both click together when you look at it from the perspective of, can they see it? Because when they see it, it's concrete. And that is something that you want to make sure in any piece of your communication, that whenever you communicate, it somehow alludes to something that has a very concrete meaning and is closely attached to that pass along phrase.
I love that. This is once again, we're definitely going to have you on the Measure Success podcast, the deeper one. But what you talked about there's so much you can draw from that, right? And understanding, and I'm going to go once again just deep. One of the this will be a whole separate podcast someday. But I've heard one of the best. When I was 20 years old, I got trained how to be a great interviewer by Deloitte & Touche, and it has worked to perfection. And interestingly enough, what you said is exactly the concept. Is if you have that tag along phrase for you in an interview, you can crush an interview. And so once again, that's for a separate podcast. But Dr. Gerharz, thank you so much for being a part of $4 Million Strategies.